Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and welcome to Season 4 of Million Dollar Business. In this series, I break down different industries, speak to experts who have sold at least $1 million in their respective industries, and ask them the questions that you need to know so you can copy and model their success. We're gonna look at what it takes to sell 1 million plus books. I sit down for 10 episodes with Neil Pasricha, the New York Times best-selling author of 6 books, which have sold over 1 million copies and spent over 200 weeks on bestseller lists, including The Book of Awesome, The Happiness Equation, and How to Get Back Up. His latest book on resilience is called You Are Awesome, and the link to order it is in the description below. I'm gonna pick his brain and extract the lessons that you need to help you sell over 1 million books as well. Let's go bring him in.
So my voice, I think, in my writing is accessible, casual, hopefully funny, okay? So I'm trying to do casual and accessible. And when I look at books that have sold 1 million copies, most of them are casual and accessible. They are Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. They're The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. They are Who Moved My Cheese. They are The 1 Minute Manager, right? I can go on and on and on. Brené Brown stuff, Daring Greatly. If you keep looking at the books that sell a crap load, it's because you get the tone and therefore they appeal to a wider and mass audience.
Welcome aboard, man. Thank you for joining us in.
Evan, great to be here.
So you're going to teach us how to sell 1 million books. This is a 10-part series. This is episode 1, and this one's about sharpening your voice. So What does that mean?
Well, here's the funny thing about books. Before we I'm so all in on this series. I'm super excited to talk about selling a ton of books because I take books seriously.
Yeah.
You love YouTube.
Yeah.
I love books. I live in
They're all
bookstores.
here.
I spend all my time there. And I realized a few years ago, and I don't know if someone told me or if it just kind of hit me, it's like when you buy a book, what are you really buying? Essentially what you're buying is a voice in your head for a certain number of hours, okay? So what you're buying when you buy a book, if you think about it, is you're just buying someone's company in your brain, in your mind, in a conversation for a set number of hours. Therefore, the number one thing you need to do, before we even talk about the selling of the books, is sharpening your voice. You have to have a voice that people want to hang out with, that people want to listen to, that people want to be around, right? Most of the time when you're talking to your friends or family, hopefully they are engaged with you in conversation. But then when I ask people, well, can you translate that to your writing, the writing suddenly becomes stiff. It becomes formal. It sounds like Wikipedia. You open any business book off a business bookshelf. I know a lot of your audience loves business books. It's like, it's dry. It's boring. It doesn't sound like the person really sounds in real life.
Why is that?
Because what we do when we write is we formalize ourselves. We feel like we got to use big words and we have to use semicolons. No one talks with semicolons. Have you ever said a semicolon? That doesn't exist in language. But when you write, people are like, yeah, I gotta, that's definitely half a sentence, semicolon. So the first thing we gotta do is sharpen your voice. And people are always like, well, how do you do that?
Yeah.
You know? And just the root of this issue, by the way, is a great little story I heard about David Foster Wallace. So David Foster Wallace has sold millions of books, is no longer alive, but wrote the book Infinite Jest, among other things. And while that book was being sold, he also was teaching writing class at a college. And so the way he would open his classes is he would say, well, the good news for all of you is we're going to learn how to write. And really all writing is talking. So if you can talk,
you can write.
You can write. And everyone's like, breathes a sigh of relief. We're in class with David Foster Wallace. It's going to be a piece of cake. And then he says, but how many people do you know that can really talk? That can really talk? He's like, not that many people. So let's work on your voice, on how you speak and how you think, and then it translates into writing. The number one thing you can do to sharpen your voice is to read fiction daily.
Wow. Okay. I read zero fiction, so this is very interesting. Okay, keep going.
The number one thing you can do to sharpen your voice is to read fiction daily. It should be fiction specifically because fiction is largely in another voice. You might be a 13-year-old girl in South Africa. You might be a boy in a boat. You might be Margaret talking to God, right? Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret. You take on the internal mental monologue of a character who isn't you, who may be not the same gender as you, the same culture as you, the same language or background as you, and you submerge your own mind in someone else's voice. Some writers are better at this than others. My favorite book over anything else to practice voice is a book called Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell. It was turned into a famous movie with Tom Hanks and was directed by the Wachowskis of The Matrix. I don't know if you know this movie.
It's same title, Cloud Atlas?
Cloud Atlas.
Oh,
have you seen this movie?
No.
Okay. So I think it was like a box office
bomb. Okay.
Unfortunately, it was like a huge, giant, big budget movie. I saw it at the film festival.
Okay.
And I loved it. And it turned me on this book. The book is written like a book that keeps opening up deeper and deeper and deeper over hundreds and hundreds of years. And every time it opens up, it changes voice completely. So you will realize, like I did, is like, wait a minute, one author has written this book under the guise of 6 different characters. If that's too hard or too literary, because it kind of is almost even for me, I'm like, oh man, this is like hard to get my mind around. Start with like the Babysitter's Club. Do you remember the Babysitter's Club? So 300 million copies, it's a book series when I was a kid. My sister had them all, and it would be like Christie's Big Idea, a book written by, presumably, Christie.
Right.
Then it was like Claudia's Giant Adventures, a book written by Claudia. And then they had these books every like 10 books called The Treasuries, where all the girls go to Disney World. And every chapter of the book is written by a different character.
Okay.
So you start learning about voice, how one author can work in a number of different voices.
And so is the idea that I'm trying all these different things to say, this part really resonates with me, and then that helps you identify what your voice is?
Well, you start shaking yourself loose a little bit, right? The goal here ultimately is to get how you speak, practice how you speak, have you speak in a captivating way, and have that translate directly to the page. But I recommend reading fiction because it expands what your awareness is of voice in writing. So speaking of voice, it's like take a book like, here I brought it with me, The Help. Okay, Catherine Stockett. This is a debut novel that sold, it doesn't say on the front, but I know it sold at least 3 million copies. If I read the first chapter of the first page, it just says, May Mobley was born on an early Sunday morning in August 1960. A church baby, we like to call it. Taking care of white babies, that's what I do, along with all the cooking and the cleaning. I done raised 17 kids in my lifetime. I know how to get them babies to sleep, stop crying, and go in the toilet bowl before their mamas even get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
You can hear it.
Yeah.
What a powerful voice. And that is you and your brain sifting into another character's way of thinking.
Right.
The goal here, though, is to sharpen your own voice.
Right.
So first thing to do is expose yourself to fiction because it's going to keep stirring up ideas and thoughts, and you see that. And like the word there was like, I done it's written that way. And you start being more comfortable with your own style of writing. Okay. Second thing you need to do here is dictate and transcribe. Okay. So when you're in a car, when you're walking in the street, when you get an idea, don't say, oh, I want to write an article about selling 1 million books. Literally try it. To hit record and say, okay, first thing on selling 1 million books is sharpen your voice. I think everyone should read more fiction. I'm recording it, and then I get home, I transcribe my own speaking, and when I read that writing, it sounds different than if I wrote it.
Right.
What you're then doing is practicing your voice as it's coming from your brain to your mouth, now to your fingers. And you aren't interrupting that flow because you aren't thinking, how do I write? You're literally writing down what you said.
Okay.
Totally different.
Right. It's more conversational.
Completely.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what people want when they buy a book.
So wild. What about people, it's so interesting. So I think about people who are writing books typically, a lot of them are not great speakers. A lot of people would much rather just sit and write than be a speaker and stay in front of a stage. And so you're saying, no, you need to practice, maybe not being in front of a stage, but you have to practice it speaking out.
Well, I should say, when you dictate and transcribe your own writing, when you read it, you're gonna cringe.
Right.
You're gonna be like, oh my gosh, like what horrible grammar I have. You know, you're gonna read that and you're gonna be like, whoa, this doesn't sound correct. But as you edit that, the root kind of middle of it, the skeleton of that thing, will stay more conversational, more casual, and most importantly, more accessible to people reading it if it starts with a transcription. So I don't think it's important to like speak perfectly.
Right.
I certainly don't. You can hear I'm speaking. I'm all over the place. But I'm
pretty good. But you're gonna edit it down, right? Like
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
Interesting.
And that's what I'm saying is when you read your own dictation and transcription, you recognize all kinds of thinking patterns that you were unfortunately already editing out when you started writing. And the goal of sharpening your voice is when people buy a book, they're really buying a voice. That voice has to be accessible to them. It can't be so high and mighty and so academic and so full of big words and so full of tall, strong prose that people can't reach it, okay? So I admit that most of my recommendations are biased towards nonfiction because that's the category that I'm in, although I'm trying to use fiction as examples because narrative voice is what sells.
Right.
My editor on the Book of Awesome and some of my sequels is a woman by the name of Amy Einhorn. She's one of the most successful editors ever in publishing, something like a 40% hit rate on the New York Times bestseller list.
Nice.
The Help is also one of her books. There's many books that Amy Einhorn has edited. When people look at Amy Einhorn, the editor, and they say, how do you choose your books? You get 1,000 books submitted to you a year. You only print 10 of them, making up the numbers, but let's just say for order of magnitude. She's like, all I'm looking for is one thing, voice. That's it. I don't care if it's fiction. I don't care if it's nonfiction. I don't care who it's targeted to. If I can hear that voice in that book, I buy the book. And when I first talked to Amy before the Book of Awesome came out, that's my first book in 2010. She told me I only have one other book under my imprint, and it's a book called The Help. It's not out yet. So The Help was the first book, the Book of Awesome was the second.
Nice.
And they both sold millions of copies because she's only looking for one thing. She's only looking for voice. And so we're going to talk, as this segment goes on, and we talk about, there's 10 things, we're going to talk about a lot more things about selling a million books, but the first thing that matters more than anything else is voice, okay? In the nonfiction world, there's a great book called The Coaching Habit by Michael Bungay-Stanier. Also brought it with me, I can grab it if you want. And similarly, when you read the book, you hear him talking to you. So of course, it's like you're hanging out with somebody. Of course, you're more likely to read it, therefore recommend it, buy multiple copies because you had a connection with the book. How else do you get your voice to be strong?
Yeah.
Journaling.
Okay.
Okay, so everybody knows you should be journaling. There's so much science and research out there about it. Professor Slatcher and Pennebaker did a famous study that shows that if you journal for just 20 minutes a day, then you're 50% more likely to stay together in your romantic relationship after 3 months. That's a crazy study.
Wow, okay.
Professor,
both people journaling or just one?
The couple together.
Journaling?
It's done at University of Texas. I always joke when I'm on stage with like 3 months is a really long relationship
right.
at the University of Texas. Everyone laughs. I say, but that's in any college or university campus. Sean Acor, positive psychology researcher, has also done a journaling study on patients with chronic neuromuscular pain. If those patients can journal for 6 weeks, you can reduce their pain medication by up to 50% at the 6-month mark. So you and I have probably heard lots of these studies and we're like, oh yeah, journaling's good for you. But what I'm arguing today is it's actually also very, very good for your voice. Okay. Most people have a challenge with journaling. You know what the challenge is?
What do I write about?
That. What I write about, and I just don't do it. Like it's just like eating healthy or like going and exercising. It's like, yeah, I heard that's good.
Yeah.
I can't just get into like a rhythm like that, kind of piece of cake. So what I do in my life to force more journaling, therefore force more unfiltered writing and unfiltered thinking, which helps my voice, is I surround myself in journals. Okay, I do it 3 ways. Number 1, I have a journal. Okay, so that helps. But I started this process on a cue card, and now I do it in a journal. It's called 2-Minute Mornings. So every morning when I wake up, I fill this out. It's just 3 prompts. I will let go of, I am grateful for, I will focus on. Each of these things is backed by a specific scientific study that shows that it helps process your anxieties and help your mind focus on the positive.
So every morning?
Every morning is a 2-minute practice. I do it every day. You can do it on a cue card. I made a book just to make sure I can actually do it. Second thing, I subscribe to a website called ahlife.com. AHHLIFE.com. When you subscribe to ahlife.com, which by the way is totally free, it asks you how frequently would you like to journal. I said every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9 p.m. That's what I said. So on those days, it spits out an email to me saying, how was your day? And don't forget, 3 weeks ago or 7 months ago, you said this.
Right.
So you see one of your old entries. All you do is reply to the email with what's inside your brain or mind at the time.
Okay.
It's a private way, because it's through an email service, but
Yeah.
free, to just get some anxieties or thoughts out. The third thing I do, and this is a model I stole from Derek Sivers, who has a great article on journaling on his website, sivers.org, is I keep a Word document on my computer, which is just called J. I just call it J for journaling.
Okay.
And whenever I'm wrestling with something, which is pretty often, I just open it up and I just start flow of consciousness. Like, I'm really stressed about X. Here's why. Here's what I think. Here's what I'm assuming to be wrong. And by the time I'm done, I always feel better, because I've just written 500 words to process the anxiety inside me. It's not stewing around anymore. By surrounding myself with journals, I am A, journaling.
Right.
That's the first thing. But B, constantly sharpening my voice, because I'm writing so much stuff that no one sees, right? Journaling in the morning, I've got an email subscription, and I've got this Word document thing. That's 3 journaling things I've got, all in the name of helping my mind, but also constantly sharpening my voice.
Could you define your voice?
Yeah, what's a voice mean?
No, like for you, what is your voice?
Oh, okay. So my voice, I think in my writing, is accessible, casual, hopefully funny, like I'm talking to you, like a little bit lighthearted. I might approach things from different angles and I come at them. I made fun of semicolons earlier. I got no semicolons in any of my books ever. Like, super important to me, because
Very anti-semicolon.
Well, Kurt Vonnegut has a quote saying semicolons are like, all semicolons do is show you went to college.
Okay.
He's like, he has a terrible phrase about them. But he's like making fun of the fact that like we use them to sound impressive.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm trying to do casual and accessible. And when I look at books that have sold 1 million copies, most of them are casual and accessible. They are don't sweat the small stuff. They're the monk who sold his Ferrari.
Yep.
They are who moved my cheese. They are the 1-minute manager, right? I could go on and on and on. Brené Brown stuff, Daring Greatly. If you keep looking at the books that sell a crap load, it's because you get the tone, and therefore they appeal to a wider and mass audience. And even smart people prefer accessible books.
Yeah.
They might buy the thick, giant, academic, dense thing, but they don't get through it enough that they're going to buy it and recommend to other people. A lot of those big, thick, smart books are just collecting dust in everyone's bookshelf.
Do you then use that? So if you want them to be accessible, you want them to be humorous, conversational, do you then use that as a filter through your editing to say, okay, let me read that chapter that I wrote back and say, it didn't hit these 3 things, so I need to fix it?
Yeah, so like my most recent book, You Are Awesome, we did 7 edits on that. That means the entire 300-page book I read through and changed tremendously 7 times over 2 years. So constantly trying to make it as simple, clean, crisp, and accessible as possible. There should never be a point in the writing where the reader is thinking, how'd they just jump from that to that? It's really kind of simple, clean, crisp voice as best as I can do it.
And the reader needs to feel like they're sitting down like this, like we are, and having a conversation with you.
Well, that's why your channel's so big and why your content's exploding and why YouTube is exploding in general, is because it's a pretty close way to connect with someone's voice. Books are trying to jump, and I will argue books are still the densest form of compressed knowledge we have in the world. Like in a 300-page book, you might get 20 years of someone's research explained in the cleanest, crispest way possible. So it's an amazing way to get stuff faster. And I personally read faster than I watch. That's just, like on a TED Talk, I'll like read the transcript. Okay. Because it takes 2 minutes instead of 18.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? This is
You're a fast reader.
But but it's like a quick read. You know what I mean? And like that's why people probably listen. And like people are probably watching this right now on like 1.5. Yeah. This guy's too slow. Speed him up for me.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Is this fair? Maybe I don't know why I'm thinking of this. Nonfiction is imagine I'm having a conversation like this with the author. Yes. And fiction is I'm watching a conversation between 2 people.
Totally, and it depends how the fiction is written. So sometimes the fiction is written in third person. Right. To your point, there's a narrator kind of overseeing the story. Yeah. Sometimes it's written in first person. I woke up on my 13th birthday and my mom said to me, then you're in the person's mind. There's some books, and one I really recommend is called How to Get Filthy Rich in Rising Asia by Mohsin Hamid. It's written in second person. Second person is amazing. So it's like choose your own adventure. It's like you open your eyes, you're under the bed, you see your mom. You know what I mean? The whole book's written like that. So there's ways that you can use voice to grip people as well. And if you can do something unique or interesting, like a second person story or getting a voice or a view that people, the help, it's like you can hear in that something that you wouldn't otherwise hear. And it's a beautiful thing to listen to.
And it needs to be captured in the first couple pages.
Well, exactly. And it has to be the same voice for the whole book.
Right, but as I open it up, and maybe it's an assignment for people to go home and do, go look at any of your books or these books we've talked about and just go read the first 3 pages.
Exactly.
And you can probably capture what their voice is and then go look at your book in the first 3 pages, and if it's just introduction or super boring, you go, okay, I can tell that these guys have a voice and I need to sharpen my own.
So in this book, You Were Awesome, and I did the same for the happiness equation. The opening of any book is 10 pages that you as the author do not get to control. So if you open this book, okay, there's 10 pages that you don't get to control. They're like blurbs, right? People saying nice things about your book.
Right. Tony Robbins says Neil is the man. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Then there's like a title. There's like a title page.
Yeah.
Then there's like a copyright page.
Yeah.
Then there's like table of contents.
Yeah. There we
then
go.
the table of contents keeps going.
Yeah.
So it's like they're so far into this thing
Yeah.
before they hear your voice.
Yeah.
So with all my books, what I try to do is capture my voice a bit early. In this book, if you open the flap, I've hidden a phrase that's in my voice. It is in you under the jacket.
Cool.
I also wrote a thing that's right at the front that I skipped over called 3 Ways to Get the Most Out of This Book.
Okay.
So you hear my voice quickly. In this book, the first thing you see when you open it is you are what you eat and you are what you read. Are you hungry? Let's go. And that's the first thing you see when you open this book.
I love it.
Because I want people to hear the voice before they have to go through the 10 pages of hurdling of all this Library of Congress, copyright, title pages. That stuff's super boring. So you want people to grab you. And I stole that idea, by the way, from another book that sold millions of copies called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. When you open that book, it says, 7 things you're going to learn in this book. And you hear him talking to you before you have to go through all the rigmarole. How do you bridge the connection between you and the reader quick? You said first sentence. I'd say even when you open the book. And I even argue, this is a weird thing, but I don't agree with dedications in books. Every book has a dedication. None of mine do. Because I think that when you pay $30 from a bookstore to buy a book and you get home, I don't want it to say, to Cindy, I love you.
Right.
You're like, who's Cindy? That's not to me. So and to the reader, to me, feels disingenuous. So I've got no dedications in my book. They're at the back in the acknowledgments so that I can continue to connect the reader to the voice without any interruption or interference.
Cool. I love it.
Just a personal bias.
I love it.
Everyone who's an author will hate this because they're like, what's he saying about my dedication? I love Cindy. Cindy's my wife. Gotta leave her in.
I love it. So rule number 1, you have to find your voice.
Sharpen that voice too.
Sharpen your voice, yeah. Cool, great. So this is a 10-part series with Neil Pasricha on how to sell 1 million+ books. Part 2 is how to find your fans. The link is right there next to us. Go click it, continue to believe, and we'll see you there.